All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. This Tuesday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. And yesterday we talked about braking by wire. We talked about where there's the actual no physical contact between the brake pedal and the brake shoes as they make contact. That's out there on cars. They're coming out with it. You should see it more in the electric vehicles that are coming out in 2019. There's not any cars that I know of right now that are brake by wire per se. That's how it's going to be, but they're coming out, and it's going to be the electric cars, the EV cars are going to be brake by wire. My Prius, like I said, it's similar to brake by wire. You still have a hydraulic system, but when you push down, you're not actually pushing the brake pads against the rotor. You're actually pushing against a resistance puck that actually makes the engine gear down to make it slow the car down. Well, there's also steering by wire. That's been out for a while now, but there's no actual connection. We talked about that yesterday as well, between the steering wheel and the tie rods or the ball joints. There's no actual connection. That's one, and that's all done electrically, and that's been around for a long time. Planes, jets have been using steering fly-by-wire or steering by wire for a long time. So that's something that's, well, it's kind of scary at first when you start thinking about how it works. You know, is there any redundancy if it fails on you? And that's the question. But I got a feeling it's pretty darn safe if they put it on there for steering. It's not going to fail on you. So that's something that I'm sure they have some sort of redundancy where there's some sort of steering. But I was reading on here about a RX-7 Mazda in one of my magazines, Motor Magazine, and the customer's complaint was it has electric steering, and everything seems normal most of the time, but ever so often the steering will become, well, it takes two hands and a man to turn it. There's no power assist to it. And the best thing I can tell about if you have that happen is you need to get that verified by the shop you're working on and let them see what's going on. Too many times the problem is intermittent. It's not doing it enough. Or the shop finds the problem is a blown fuse. They replace the fuse thinking that problem is fixed. But that's not the underlying problem. The fuse is blown is a symptom of another problem, such as wires chafed, such as something in a bind, too many amps being drawn. Most of these are 60 amp is what they're drawing. And when they're turning left or right, they won't draw any more than 25 amps. And that's one of the things a shop can test. How many amps does it draw if it's sitting still on the ground and with an amp clamp on it and you're turning the steering wheel left and right? Is there more amperage being drawn going to the left or going to the right? That's how we're going to be testing steering. We're going to be testing them with low amp clamps. That's how we're going to be testing them. Not with power steering hydraulic units anymore, but yet there are some electric assist cars out there. They're still using electric and hydraulic combined. They are. There's some interesting things out there, but that's all going away, the hydraulic part. I really feel that's going to be, that is going to go away because that's just one more weight issue that they're going to have to get rid of in order to get that 45.2 miles to a gallon they're expecting by 2025. That's what they're going to have to do. Well, I think that's what they're going to have to do is get more weight off cars in order to get that kind of mileage. If it's possible, we'll find out. They may all be hybrids before it's all said and done to get that 45.2 miles a gallon. But the thing is, that's one of the things we're talking about: fly-by-wire, steering by wire, brake-by-wire. Right now, we have most of how am I going to describe this? Not your steering, your air conditioning. Your air conditioning, a lot of people think when you turn the air conditioning on, it goes from there to the compressor. No, when you turn the air conditioning on, it goes from there to the computer. The computer looks at certain parameters and determines, are those parameters correct? And then it allows the compressor to come on. So that's why when people's compressors don't work, they say, well, isn't it just a fuse? Isn't it just something simple? Well, not necessarily. It could be a dozen different things that won't allow the compressor to come on. Bad relay, bad evaporator temperature sensor that thinks that it's satisfied and it doesn't need to turn the compressor on. It thinks it's 32 degrees. Really, it's 85 degrees outside, but the computer doesn't know it because the sensor's bad. There's so many variables that can keep a compressor coming on. There's so many variables that keep your power steering from not working correctly. A bound up ball joint. That's one of the reasons we see that today on cars with not electric steering. Well, we have electric steering, but we see that a lot on cars where a ball joint will freeze up and the customer can't quite figure out what's wrong with it. And we've seen that on hydraulic systems. I mean, for years and years and years. Normally, the symptoms are creaking, squawking, noises when you bounce the car because things are dry, or when or you got more resistance turning on one way or turning the other way. Years ago, when we saw that with the rack and pinion, we suspected, in most cases, we were correct, that the rack and pinion unit was defective. It's a hydraulic unit that has a gearing, a valve body inside where it goes down. That's a valve body right there, and it determines how to send power assist to the right side or to the left side. Well, sometimes that valve body bore gets wore out, and it can't determine where it's supposed to send anything. So it just doesn't work. So there's no power steering assist. So that's one of the tests that we had years ago to look for. Now that's gone away. We're not going to be looking at hydraulic fluid pressures. We're going to be looking at how much effort it takes us to do that. One thing we're going to be looking at. We're also going to be looking at the scanner, and it's going to have a PID. It's going to have a parameter that's going to tell us how much effort and the steering angle. All these things are going to be looking at, because a car needs to know where straight is. If it doesn't know where straight is, you're going to get a code saying, your steering angle sensor's off. And when any of these parts go bad and they have to be changed, they all have to be coded and programmed or married to the car. You just can't take a part and stick it on there and it'll work. It won't work. You're going to have a scanner to be able to make these things talk to each other and work as they should. We see too many people in our industry that change parts, and they'll put a part that looks like it, smells like it, tastes like it. You'd swear that's an identical part, but they're inferior. And they may not act up now, they may not act up for a year, but they will act up. I shouldn't say will. And almost always will act up, and when you least expect it to do it. We've talked about that on PCV valves. We've talked about that on oxygen sensors. We've talked about that on fuel pumps. We've talked about that on, if you've got a car and you've got a very hard part to change, or a part that does a part whose job is to control the fuel and do it precisely, I am going to suggest, you can take my advice or not, do not buy aftermarket parts. I know that sounds like a really simple rule, and you would say, well, that makes sense. I wouldn't want to buy aftermarket parts. But when you should tell a customer a water pump's going to cost them, my cost $400, and they can buy one from Manny, Mo, and Joe down there for $89.95, which one do you think they're going to buy? They want to buy that $89.95 one. Well, that $89.95 one may look, smell, and taste like the original equipment water pump, but they're not. We had one that came in that cost the customer over 2 weeks of downtime because they didn't have their car, because we couldn't, we figured it out. The car comes in, it's complaining about running hot. The fans run constantly all the time, it's running hot. Okay, let's take a look at it. We check it out, no blown head gasket. Now this is a Volvo. This is a straight 6-cylinder, transverse mounted Volvo, I believe is a 6-cylinder, and the problem was it would run hot. You could drive fine, but it would run 240, 250 degrees. And that's just way too darn hot. You shouldn't be having to drive that hot. So we're looking at it. We know the radiator's good. We replaced the thermostat, the high dollar expensive thermostat from Volvo. Still does the same problem. We're scratching our head going, no blown head gasket, not this. And we look at it and said, the only thing I can think of that could cause this problem would be a water pump. And I pulled the heater hose off and started the car up, and it wasn't pumping water. And I said, I know the customer's not going to like this, but he's got 230,000 miles on this vehicle. I suspect the timing belt's been changed, and they've replaced the water pump with this many miles on it. And I bet you they put an aftermarket pump on it. And sure enough, we tore it down. They had an aftermarket pump that was a ceramic impeller, not the metal impeller. And that's exactly what happened. It cost the customer 2 weeks because we were waiting to get the Volvo part coming in. It was a $400-something part just for the part. Volvo is very proud of their parts. So my advice to you, if you're working on cars that have hard to get to parts, or you have parts that you really don't want to have to tear into a second time, please buy original equipment parts. You'll be money in the bank. I got Jerry calling on a 2000 3.8 Mustang. Jerry, what's your question about your Mustang, sir?
I called yesterday and talked to Paul, your mechanic, and he told me to check the starter on it. But what it's doing, James, it's rolling over. It was running real good, and all of a sudden it just quit. It just died right in the driveway. My grandson said it was making a little type of sound like a squealing belt, but when I got the car, we got in to go around the block, it just died right in the driveway. And it hadn't started since. What it's doing is rolling over, but it's not firing at all.
There's no spark if you pull a spark?
No spark.
Okay.
I changed the crankshaft sensor, the camshaft sensor, the 6-pack, and checked my starter for a short, and it will not. It'll roll over good, plenty. Like it ain't jump time or nothing like that.
Let me
But
ask,
it just will not fire a bit.
here's what I want you to do. There's something called an EEC4 power relay. EEC4 power relay. You can tell how old I am. It's an EEC power relay. It's not EEC4. That's from years ago. But anyway, the power relay sometimes can go bad. The first thing I do when I get a car that has no spark, and you don't have any spark, you're not getting any fuel injector pulse or anything, right? It just turns over.
Right,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay, here's what I want you to do. Is car's fuel injected. Go find the wires that go. Does your car have, it has injectors. Go find the injector. There's a red wire on every injector. The red wire is hot all the time with the key in the on position. Not starting, but just in the on position. Turn that key to on. See if the red wire going to the injectors has 12 volts. If it has 12 volts, then I'm wrong. If it doesn't have 12 volts, the relay is faulty.
Okay. Look, what did you do now? I noticed also when you turn it on, you get all the gauges, you get your lights on the dash and everything like that.
Yeah.
But as soon as you hit the ignition switch, everything dies on it, goes out.
That's what I want.
Set down, leave it in the on position. Everything will come back on.
Right.
And if you try it again, it does the same thing. It goes right back off.
You're losing power. Here's the most common problem I've seen. This is the most hey, let me tell you what. I am not that. I got a couple minutes left. I've seen this before where I've had him kick me in the butt, and I'm sitting there going, why won't this thing start? And what it ended up doing, I forgot the basics. Turn the key to on. Go out there. You've got like I said, you've got a 6-cylinder engine. Just unplug one of the injector wires. It should be 12 volts there. I bet you when you're in the crank position, you don't have 12 volts there. You lose everything because there's a voltage drop at the main relay. And I'm going to go look this up real quick, and I'm going to say you have no spark, you have no fuel injection, you have no nothing, and it just turns over is all it does. It's a 2000 3.8 Mustang, right? Okay, let me look this up.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to Identifix because a lot of times this is what tells me what's going on.
Where's that relay located?
Well, this is a Identifix is something I have to pay for. This is a website that I paid for to have. It cost me $100.
He asked where the relay's located.
Oh, relay's in the relay box. Excuse me. That's where I'm going right now. Crank, no start. Crank,
Yes, sir.
no start, and no spark. No spark. Okay, I'm going to see what that says. Crank, no start, no spark. Let's see if it pulls up. And maybe I put too many words in there. It'll tell me in just a second. All right, crank, no start, no spark. Let me click on that one. Let me see what happens. Okay, check engine light is on, powertrain control module. Is there any codes?
I don't see nothing.
I mean, is there check engine light? Have you taken a scanner to it?
No, sir. I don't have a scanner. It's not flashing or nothing like that. It stays.
Okay, but you're telling me that there is no start, no spark. Is there any injector pulse? Have you gone out there to see if the injector?
No, sir. I ain't done that.
Okay, I need you to do that. But the biggest thing I'm seeing that's causing your problem is going to be the powertrain control module or the computer or the powertrain control relay, which is located in the relay box. I've seen that happen.
Okay.
I had one the other day. Customer says, I go down the road, everything's fine. Sometimes I pull over to red light and the car just dies. And I wait a minute and I crank it and it won't start. And I wait another minute and it'll start. I'm going, really? It's doing all these weird things? He says, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I walked out to his car. Now, this is a Ranger with a 3-liter engine in it. I walked out and said, the car just dies on? He said, yeah, it does. And I reached over there while the car was running and I smacked the relay box, the fuse box, the car died. I said, I think I found your problem. He said, what'd you do? I said, I just smacked the relay box. You got a bad relay. And I put another relay, put it back in there, solved this problem. He'd been fighting this for over a year. So, like I said, go out there, check that to make sure that you have no spark, make sure you don't have any of that, and then you can determine if you're getting power. Just unplug that the wires that go to the injector, turn the key on and see if you have 12 volts, and then see if you have 12 volts when you're cranking the car. See if you still keep 12 volts. You're just losing voltage. That's what it is. You just got a simple relay or a bad ground somewhere. And if you can't fix it, drag it to James Auto Center, and I know I can fix it. Okay?
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, you be good. Thanks for calling. This is James Morris. We'll be right back. Boy, I went too long on that. We'll be right back.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
All right, welcome back. Only got about 11 minutes on this segment. The gentleman just called about his Mustang. One of the keys to find out, I've seen this before on Fords, if you've got a digital odometer, when you turn the key and the car won't start, it turns over, won't fire up. If the odometer doesn't tell you the mileage and you get a dash, it is what I'm telling you. It's going to be you're not getting power. I've seen that from a relay. I've also seen it where someone's put an aftermarket device that starts a car, a remote start. I've seen that happen. So make sure when the car...
he did mention that the gauges and everything lit up, and then on the on, then when you hit start, then they'd go black.
Well, that's why I'm saying he's got a... I really think he's losing either the power train control module relay. It's got a voltage drop on it, causing it not to do it. Possible faulty computer. But what I would do is I'd check the basics first. I really would. Because we've had cars come in, they have put computer after computer after computer in it, and I said, wait a minute, if you're putting computers in, something's got to be destroying them. And sure enough, we found out we had bad grounds. And people go, how do you find out if you got bad grounds? Just what the grounds that go to the computer, you take the grounds and take the power supply and find you a headlight. And take the headlight, the negative side of the headlight, and put it where the ground is. Take the positive side, put it where the positive side is, and turn the key on. And see if it lights up the headlight. If it lights up the headlight, then you got good grounds, good power. But if it doesn't, then you need to figure out, is it the ground side that's bad, or is it the positive side that's bad, or is it both sides that are bad? That's how we go about determining what kind of problem we have, where it is on the negative, positive side. I've had some people say, well, take a digital voltometer out and see how much resistance you got. Boy, that makes my head hurt. I can't do that. I don't know very many people that can, but I know everybody I've ever shown how to take a headlight to and say, does the headlight work? Yeah, it's nice and bright. Or is the headlight, well, it's just barely glowing. Well, we got a problem there. Let's figure out, is it on the ground side? So we'll take the ground side off and touch it to a known good ground like the battery, and the light gets good and bright. We go, hey, guess what? It's on the ground side. Or we take the positive, so we leave it on the ground side, take the positive side off, put it to a known good positive, and then we got nice bright. So, oh, look, it's on the positive side. And sometimes I've done it and it's on both sides. I have a bad ground and I have, so it does happen. But a headlight, if you really want to get to the source of a problem, and you're trying to determine, is it the positive side, is it the negative side, rig you a headlight. That's one of the best diagnostic tools out there. It's short of a waveform transducer pattern, which I use all the time to show the 720 degrees of a 4-cycle engine of the suck, squeeze, bang, blow of 4 cycles and 2 revolutions. You can determine, is it a valve seat? I got a car right now. I did it on the older model, 92 model. I told the customer, I said, the problem you got according to the wave pattern I'm seeing here is you got a valve seat that's messed up. That seat, that's why sometimes it misses and sometimes it doesn't miss. There's a valve seat that's bad causing this problem. It's loose. It's going to eventually fall out and destroy your engine, but that's what's going on. You got a valve seat. That's why sometimes you have a miss and sometimes you have a dead hole, and sometimes it runs just fine. And that's what's going on. So these things, using a test light and waveform transducer pressure readings, those are things that, well, years ago, I really didn't use pressure transducer readings. I used just, a compression gauge. Well, that's not very accurate. You really can't tell much about it, whether you got compression or not. You can't exactly tell what's happening inside the combustion chamber. Well, with a pressure transducer wave pattern reading, you can. You can say, well, is it an intake valve? Is it an exhaust valve? Is it rings? How much compression do I have? You can see all that. You can even see what the timing is. I know it sounds hard to believe. You can actually overlay it and determine if your timing is too far retarded. If you got a timing belt that's on there wrong, well, that wasn't the problem in this car. But anyway, the point I'm trying to say is there's a lot of things out there that a lot of shops can use that don't use and can use and should use in order to diagnose cars. And one of the things I was talking about earlier is when you're putting parts on a car, do not get the cheapest parts. We see it every day. Come visit ABC Parts Store. We got the cheapest parts. Why do you want to put the cheapest parts in your car when you're going to have to tear them apart? And sometimes that new part you bought, NEW, stands for never ever worked. I've seen that more than once. I put brand new parts on. I mean brand spanking new parts, and look at it and go, that thing's just as bad as the one I took off. Brand new. I take it back and say, look, just keep it. I don't need this. I'll spend the extra, 30, 40% sometimes and buy one from the manufacturer. And it taught me a very valuable lessons over the years. I don't like buying, well, if you've got a car that has a water pump that's driven by a timing belt, don't take chances. Buy the OE original equipment water pump that was driven by a timing belt. If you've got a car that has a water pump that's driven by a timing chain, there's a lot of those out there. A lot of people know about it. I'm talking about because you've had to pay that bill to get that water pump changed. It wasn't cheap. But you said, well, I'll just get an aftermarket pump and put on there. And then a year later, you're doing it all over again. I'm going to tell you right now, bite the bullet. Buy original equipment water pumps, especially for those driven by timing belts or timing belts or timing chains. If you've got one that's relatively easy to change and you want to gamble, I got no problem. Go ahead and put your aftermarket one on there. It's up to you. But for the amount of money difference between brand spanking new from the manufacturer and from, XYZ parts store, there's not that much difference sometimes. Yeah, there are a few differences. Yeah, like some water pumps on some Volvos. Woo, a big difference. Big difference. But there's a reason for it. You can either pay me now to get it fixed right, or you can pay me a lot more later when you got to change an engine because it ran too hot. I see a lot of people cut corners when they don't need to. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday. He bought a car. He didn't pay much for the car, but he wants to make a Sunday driver or let the top down and go for a drive. And I said, I think that's a wonderful idea. You didn't pay much for the car. Now I'm going to depress you. You need to change the radiator, the hoses, and the thermostat. He kind of looked at me like, well, it's not running hot. I said, well, you're only getting rid of 25 degrees of heat. What does that mean? Well, when the car was brand new, the upper hose and the lower hose was getting around. If you shot the difference with temperature coming in and the temperature coming out of the radiator, it was about 45 degrees, somewhere in that area. Over a period of time, it drops down, and after about 10 years, it gets down to around 30 degrees. Once it gets below 30 degrees, it's time to get rid of the radiator, do something. Because once a car gets about 10 years old, I see this all the time, the hoses are original equipment. They're not going to last much longer. How long do you think those hoses are going to last if it's 10, 12, 13-year-old car? They're on their way out. Hoses are only good for about 4 to 5 years on average. And if you've gone 10 to 15 years on it, you're pushing your luck. Same thing with tires. Tires only have a lifespan of about 5 to 6 years. You got more than that, you're pushing your luck. Well, same thing with the cooling system. If you want to have a nice car you can drive around and on the beach with and get stuck on the Jane Hathaway Bridge in traffic, when that unexpected times happen, and next thing you know, you're sitting on the side of the road with your hood up and steam coming out because you didn't listen to the technician that told you to change your radiator, your thermostat, your hoses, do a coolant exchange, and do all that before your car overheated. Now you're going to have to go pay to have that fixed, pay that radiator because now it's cracked, it's broken. You're going to change those hoses, so now you're going to spend the money. Now, instead of it being preventative maintenance, it's crisis management. It's your call. Pay me now or pay me later. But I'm going to tell you, if you got a car that's more than 10 years old, get ready to change the radiator. I got people like, my radiator. Do me a favor. Go find a make, model, year of that car that same as yours, that's brand new. And get it up to operating temperature. If you got one of those thermal guns, just about everybody has them. I think you can buy them from Harbor Freight for $29.95 now. They're laser, and you can just shoot the temperature. If you know someone that's got a car or a truck like yours, just go get the car stopped at a red light outside in the sun, pop the hood, shoot the upper hose, see what the temperature is, shoot the lower hose and see what the temperature is with the fans running and the air conditioning on. On a new car, you're getting rid of between 40 to 45 degrees of heat. Now, once that car gets about 10 years old, you're lucky to get rid of more than 30 degrees of heat. And that's when it's a real fine line right there. Once it gets below 30 degrees, not getting rid of more than 30 degrees of heat, things deteriorate very, very quickly. And next thing you know, you're running hot and you're calling a tow truck to have your car towed into a shop to be repaired. So that's one of the things I'm cautioning you. If you got a car, your weakest link is your cooling system. We hadn't talked about that in a while. So please, if you're not changing your coolant every couple of years, change your coolant every couple of years. If you're one of those people, and you might get more than 10 years out of your radiator. I've seen some people go 15 years before I see the temperature drop below 30 degrees. And it does happen. I mean, those are the people that every 30,000 miles, they change their antifreeze completely. And at the end of 10 years, I'm checking their system out. And 10 years, I go, you know what? Right now you're getting rid of 32 degrees of heat. I can't really prove, your radiator's working well. There's not clogged. Your antifreeze looks good. The pH is fine. I'm going to say leave it alone. But I get those guys that say, well, I'm going to change my antifreeze just like my owner's manual says every 5 years, every 150,000 miles. At 100,000 miles, I've got a car that's not getting rid of heat. I've got a car that's clogged up on the radiator. It's got that slime built inside it. It's got rusty water inside of it because it developed a little leak over the years, and someone just put city water in it just to top it off because, well, it's just water. It won't hurt anything. It doesn't hurt anything at the moment, but it does hurt. So that's what I'm saying on a car. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Pay the money to get proper preventative maintenance. Change your fluids more often than what the owner's manual says because they're giving you under normal condition, and none of you in the sound of my voice listen to the show are normal drivers. We're all severe service. It's all short trips. It's all taking the kids to school. It's all picking them up, going to church, soccer games. We're talking about driving a car 15, 20 minutes and shutting it off and then firing it back up an hour later and driving another 15, 20 minutes. That's hard on a car. It's a lot easier to start a car up and drive it from here to Tallahassee, shut it off, and then come back 3 or 4 hours and drive it back. That's a lot easier on a car's cooling system, on the oil, everything, than it is to start a car up, drive it here in traffic, stop and go traffic for 20 minutes, park the car, come back 20 minutes later, do the same thing over and over again. It's harder on a car. Honest to God. It's not me saying that. It's automotive engineers who've studied this. That's why there's severe service and there's normal service. Normal service is for the fleet operators. That's normal. Most of you are not fleet operators. You're just normal, just like me and my wife. We just are normal, severe service drivers. All right, we'll talk to y'all.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers who in turn can take care of their customers.
Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
So, the I'll get there quick plumbing guy got there quick. But he left just as quick. He did fix the leak in the kitchen drain. Yeah, too bad this is the bathroom. And that isn't even the culprit. Ah, there she is. At Mr. Rooter Plumbing, why do we go through an exhaustive 14-point checklist? To make sure we fix even the problem behind the problem.